Thamesmead is 11 miles from Charing Cross, on the south bank of the River Thames, straddling the border which divides the Royal Borough of Greenwich and the London Borough of Bexley.
London District.
Tavy Bridge estate has been in decline at varying degrees for some years. Much of it has now been evacuated awaiting destruction. Soon we will see Peabody's redeveloped blocks of 525 homes, along with shops and a new library. It was originally thought up with futuristic ideas for solving social problems, restoring the close-knitted nature of working class communities. GLC architect Robert Rigg was hugely inspired by the Swedish, who believed that the water of wildlife attracting lakes and canals produced a calming influence on younger residents, mitigating any ideas of vandalism or other crime.
It seems wherever you go, people are hid up doing drugs, like in stairwells, like when you go up to go to your house, they're like standing up stairwells, injecting.
The original designs used the ground level of buildings as garage space, with living accommodation and overhead walkways placed above. Lessons learned from the devastating Thames estuary floods of 1953 via the North Sea. These walkways became littered and abused, however, and eventually considered unsafe places to walk. Many of the set pathways were ignored in favour of more direct routes across grassed areas.
London districts, yo.
Before Thamesmead was Thamesmead, it was collectively the Erith and Plumstead Marshes. The Augustinian monks from nearby Lesnes Abbey constantly drained the land to reclaim it and stopped it from flooding completely. By doing so, they could level the ground to cultivate their crops and rear domestic animals. Galleon's Reach Park features different clusters of man-made hillocks built up as viewing platforms, with the most domineering being the 20-metre-high conical mound of Galleon's Tor. A helical pathway spirals around it twice before leading to its summit, which is a paved plateau in the form of a compass. These hills are made out of engineered fill and subsoils recycled from contaminated land of the former Royal Arsenal. In the distance, old military buildings still remain from the days when these marshes formed part of Woolwich Arsenal. The Eco Park is an area of sustainable, affordable social housing built to high energy efficiency and modern environmental standards. The homes feature advanced installation and their water supply is heated via solar panels in the roofs. Galleons is named after 14th century family, the Galleons, who owned property on both sides along this stretch of the river. This is the reason why the seemingly associated Galleon's Reach DLR station is north of the river in an entirely different district. Plumstead to Thamesmead is a 3-mile footpath owned by Thames Water called Ridgeway. It exists as a pleasant way to obscure the southern outfall sewer, which is why most of it appears as raised land. It comprises a mix of grass and dirt tracks plus paved paths and is meant to accommodate cyclists since the route is relatively flat. A similar path called the Greenway covers the northern outfall sewer. The Great Stink terrorised London for 2 months of an exceptionally hot summer in 1858. For years, an inadequate sewer system channeled all human waste and industrial effluent directly into the Thames. Sewage smells horrible, but the stench is considerably more putrid if it is allowed to ferment in such long stretches of heat. Since most of London took their water from the river, they had essentially been gulping down poison in the form of cholera born from untreated sewage and the water supplies contaminated with bacterium. 30,000 Londoners died in successive epidemics. To extinguish the miasma, the smell, Victorian civil engineer Joseph Bazalgette had an idea to route the sewage by gravity flow and steam-powered pumping engines as remotely as possible seawards during the ebbing tide. The plan introduced the Victoria, Chelsea and Albert embankments to London, inside which the sewers would need to run. This initiative brought an end to the cholera outbreaks, and we still rely on that same sewerage system today to service our city of 9 million people. The engines, however, were decommissioned in the 50s. The cost of dismantling them was so enormous, they just left them idle. The astonishing industrial building is a particularly special example of Victorian engineering of its time, described as the Cathedral on the Marsh. The Crossness pumping station is now a museum for those wishing to marvel at the solution to that revolting situation. Many of Thamesmead's angles can either be very useful or a pleasing to the eye aspect of its infrastructural layout. Stanley Kubrick decided Southmere was perfect for his dystopian cult classic film of 1971, A Clockwork Orange. Channel 4's BAFTA award-winning series The Misfits was filmed on location here in its entirety, and the super disturbing nightmare music video, Come to Daddy, by electronic musician Aphex Twin, chose this area in 1997 for its ultra-gritty backdrop. The name Thamesmead was the result of a winning entry by a Bexley resident in a newspaper competition titled Name Our New Town. It was then subheaded as the Town of the 21st Century in 1968, once the first residents moved in. The district today is basically a vast housing estate put together by the GLC in an effort to alleviate the overcrowding problem from slums elsewhere in the city. Large portions of it remain undeveloped, and the degree of juxtaposition between scenes could be quite disorientating for a new visitor. Collectively, it feels rural, urban, and suburban. During the 1990s, Thamesmead became riven by racial tension in the form of violence, vandalism, burglary, youth gang culture and racism, fueled to some extent by an undercurrent of fascism, a far cry from its aspiration as the town of the 21st century. The state of national policy at that time, together with certain media coverage, only further enhanced the feeling of abandonment and despair felt in the community, which in turn led to anger and resentment. This atmosphere fueled a climate of hostility especially towards black and Asian minorities, who as a result felt unsafe, and many were effectively forced out of the district, forging Thamesmead as a no-go area for them. Statistics show today that minority groups now form the majority population of Thamesmead, with black Africans in particular being the most numerous of residents.